Hello, everyone. This is Jim Simard with Care Printing and Publishing. I've been authorized by ClearPropTV's Paramotor podcast to edit this week's show and rebroadcast it for you. In this edit, I endeavor to focus on the guest, their story, and what they have to say. If you find this show even a little bit informative, please give it a thumbs up, and that will benefit others. It'll allow them to find the video easier and learn as well. So, if you have any questions, put them down below in the comment section and I'll answer them. Also, if you enjoy the show and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified when more videos come up. Have a great day. Enjoy the show.
Well, hello, everyone. We are live. It's so nice to be here. It's another Monday. Had a great birthday weekend. I'm still recuperating from that. And we have lots of people already here. We got 13 people, 8 likes. Man, thank you for the likes. That definitely helps. This is going to be a great show. I cannot believe it's June already. I mean, July is right around the corner. You know, before you know it, it's going to be, season 4 of Paramotor Podcast here. It's unbelievable. I cannot believe it. Let's see. We are going to be chatting tonight with Steve. Do we want to call you Steve or Steven Mintie?
Call me Steve. If it's Thursday night, you can call me Stephanie.
Okay, so we can call you all sorts of cool stuff tonight. But before we get to you, Steve, we're going to be talking to the panel real quick. So as always, we have Linda Anderson. She's our ParaMomUSA.com. If you want to be on the show, all you got to do is go to ParaMomUSA.com. It forwards over to our Facebook page. You can PM her or DM her and say, hey, I want to be on PPG Grandpa's Paramotor Podcast, ClearPropTV.com or paratalk.org. How you doing, Miss Linda? Good to see you.
I'm doing awesome. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, my chatters. Of course, my viewers. I love you so much. Thank you for joining us on Monday night. The only place to be is right here with our awesome host, Sean, Grandpa.
Yeah, you can just call me
and
old
then we
Sean.
have our awesome guest, Steve. Yes, Mr. Mintie. So it's going to be a really good show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Miss Linda. We definitely appreciate you and all the hard work that you've done. We've already got guests booked into July already. So if you want to be on the show,
we've got 2 booked in July already. So
you better get up with Miss Linda, or else you might have to be what's after July?
Yeah, on the waiting list.
An August peep. Woo, yeah. That's crazy. So thank you, Linda. We appreciate you, our PR girl. We love you so much. You're awesome. We also got Will Fly from willflyppg.com. What's up, Mr. Will?
Hey, what's going on? I've just had last couple of days had some really nice flights, and yeah, it's good to get back in the air. Shout out to my buddy James Sutherland. He's back in the air too after his little snafu, so it was good to fly with him. Yeah, just
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Absolutely awesome. I mean, imagine 5 weeks and now he's back in the air. That's pretty incredible.
I can't imagine going that long without flying.
I couldn't either.
It's just too much. I don't know if I could stand it.
Yeah, and it's James Sutherland. I mean, he flies more than anybody that I know.
Yes, definitely. I agree. Well, thank you very much for joining us. If you have any questions for our guest tonight, make sure you hit up Will. Just do it at Will Fly and ask the question in the super chat. And if you want to check out his paramotor shenanigans, how do we get up with you, Mr. Will?
You can just look me up under YouTube, Will Fly, or you can go to willflyppg.com.
I love it. Well, thank you, Will. We'll be texting you in the super chat all of our questions. We also got Jim from Canada. What's that? A boot and your maple syrup money.
How are you doing?
Man, I miss you, buddy. I miss you. We need to go fly and stuff. I assume that if your money is maple syrup smelling flavor, then your wing probably smells pretty good too.
Yeah, for sure. Just don't come up and scratch it while I'm flying.
Scratch and snip your wing. I love it. So you have your own printing company. up in Canada, and you've helped us out with paramotorcalendars.com and stickers and all that other stuff. And if you haven't received your stickers, please stand by. I'm so sorry. I will send out the rest of the stickers sometime this week. So your company is called CarePP, and you can find it at carepp.com, right?
That is correct. Care printing.
And your paramotor shenanigans is careppg.com.
Yes, sirree. Thank you.
So real quick, if we want to get some stickers made or decals, and decals are decals, how do we get up with you? Do we go to your .com? Do we get up with you as like with a phone number, or how do we get up with you, bud?
Yeah, you can get in contact with me through carepp.com, or if you want to contact me by phone, it's 1-800-946-4027, extension 2.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know you had a 1-800 number. That's awesome. That's awesome. Awesome. Oh, and what are you up to as far as flights?
I am at 132. I just succeeded with that, or 133 yesterday.
Woo! Awesome.
You have a
buddy.
1-800 number? I'm calling it if I get lonely. I'm
I'm going to get you a 1-900. How's that?
I like it.
That's pretty cool. We also got our very own Flying Flamingo Jade with our paramotorgirl.com. Welcome to the show. I'm very happy that you're here kicking back and being on our panel. It's been a long time since I've seen you here.
Right. Been a little bit recuperating. I'm just under a week out from having my knee surgery, and did one therapy session and go back tomorrow to get my butt kicked at that again. But pain is starting to dissipate a little bit, and walking a little bit faster with crutches or the walker yet. So, and hopefully I'll be back on the show for Wednesday night also this week.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that you're recuperating. And you had what, both your knees done, both of them, or just one?
No, just one knee replacement.
And my mom was thinking about getting her knee replaced. So she's always watched the show. So could you explain real quick? I know we have to get to our guests and stuff. What is involved with a knee replacement, and do you think it's worth it?
Well, I didn't watch any of the videos beforehand because I didn't want to get freaked out, but I do have a hole in my quad, and then a hole down by my shin. And they said that it's a robot that goes in. It's a new procedure, and the robot goes in, and that must help do the precise cutting off of the bones on each end, and cleans everything out. And I've got one major big scar or stitch across the other ones right in the middle of my knee, going up and down, but that's about it. Just a lot of icing right now and keeping my foot elevated and trying to get my body back into working normal again. Food still doesn't appeal to me too much, which is good. So
Okay.
yeah, but
Well, that's really interesting. We probably need to do a whole video or something about that, because that's really interesting stuff. I'm glad that you're recuperating.
Ask me in a year if it was worth it. So, but everybody tells me it is.
It's gonna be worth it. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate
Just
it. You
walk
also
it off,
do-
Jade. Just
Right.
walk it off.
Just walk it off. Just walk it off. And you have
Walk it
a all-female podcast on Wednesdays over at paramotorgirl.com. So if you haven't been over there, go to paramotorgirl.com. It forwards over to her YouTube channel. Just hit subscribe and hit that bell notification. So thank you very much, Jade. Good to see you.
Thanks.
And of course, it's not about me. It's not about the panel members. It's all about our guest tonight. Stephen Mintie is here. He's been only flying for about a year, but apparently he's made a little dent in the paramotor community. It seems like everybody knows him, and I guess we're going to chat with him tonight. So welcome, Steve, to the show. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Sean, for having me on.
Well, absolutely,
awesome.
buddy. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into paramotoring.
So I got into paramotoring during it was probably like the worst time of my life. I had a year where I got utterly destroyed. Within a span of a year, I got a divorce. It wasn't like an ugly, toxic one. We loved each other. But I mean, that's like your a family member died. Absolutely awful. And I dealt with it really well. Even though I'd probably like cry every other night for 6 months straight, I worked out a lot. I stayed focused on my career, and I had a good support base with friends. But a year later, I walked away from a 10-year career. I was a superintendent of a funeral home and cemetery and a corporate trainer, and I had to walk away from it for reasons I can't talk about at the moment. But my whole entire identity was wrapped up in that. I thought that's all I knew how to do well. I was very well liked there as a leader, and I got a lot of results. It was perfect. But when I walked away from that, I shut down, and that was a very physical, active job, and even my body started to rot, and just lost all self-worth. It was horrible. It was absolutely despair. I can't express how bad it really was. And I had a couple months before I found a new job, which actually turned out to be way better. But I didn't have a whole lot to do. I was taking care of the house and just doing chores, but it wasn't good, and ended up having a lot of time to watch YouTube. And I ended up watching a lot of Trent Palmer. I don't know if you know what he does. He does a lot of the short takeoff landing, bush plane. He's a professional drone operator. Great YouTube channel. And I always thought, wow, this guy just lands wherever he wants. He finds a little hill and he could just land and do this. And I thought that'd be cool, but I'd never have the budget to take care of, maintain, and whatnot of an aircraft. There was just no way. And I just randomly started checking out ultralight stuff. I was a science guy when I was younger. Was into sort of some aviation things, took some aeronautical stuff in high school, got behind a Cessna and the controls of that. I was more of a rocket science type of guy though, and ended up going to college for music and blew all that away. But I eventually found Tucker Gott, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. I can fly without a cockpit, and I can actually afford to do this. And so I started checking him out, and I started checking out everything. And at first I was really anxious about stuff like, am I going to break my legs doing this? Am I going to die? And I would even spend a lot of time. There's that one YouTube channel, Cameron Saeed or something, where it's paramotor gone wrong or paragliding gone wrong. I would watch every accident I could and find out what's the reason why it happened. I would go through Going's accident reports and figure out what happened, what went wrong. Eventually I realized this is actually pretty safe based on the decisions you make. It's not like someone's swing arm just breaks and then you crash and die. There's even a lot of redundancy.
I wonder. I wonder for all the people that are watching the super chat that are watching this right now, have you gone and watched all these paramotor crash videos and paragliding crash videos? Let us know in the super chat if you have. I think that we got a lot of questions for you. I mean, they are just flowing in, Mr. Steve. It's unbelievable. So
I'll take a pause partway through the story.
Was there any? Will, can you ask him a quick question real quick from the super chat? I think you're on mute, buddy.
You're muted, Will.
Dang, rookie mistake. Hey, so Nick Griffith is breaking the ice and he wants to know what the craziest thing you've done is. I'm assuming about paramotor.
Paramotor related, the weirdest thing I've done is at Salton Sea. I met up with Dimitri from Iris Paramotor, and I dressed in drag, and he took me on a tandem, and I flew over and flashed Del Shanzi.
Okay. No, that's funny. That is hilarious. I wonder if has anybody else flashed Del Shanzi? I don't know, but that sounds hilarious. So you do a lot of drag flying, or is that just a one-time thing, or what?
I've only been up in the air once with it. This summer I'll probably do something just to make something funny. Who knows? It's not a common thing. There's a backstory behind that too.
Awesome. Jim, is there any other questions in the super chat before we continue?
Well, yeah, I noticed one here from Paramotor Steve. He was asking, Steve, how often do you get to go flying?
I can fly pretty much whenever I want if the weather's conducive, but in a good season, twice a week has been the average. That might kick up. It kind of averages out to once a week, and then winter, if I'm not traveling, maybe once every 2 weeks.
Cool. A sub question to that would be like, how many flights have you had?
Only 42. People think I have a lot more.
But on our pre-show, you said that you do a lot of spot landings. So are you counting every time you touch the ground and do your do that, or
So
how do you count your flights, I guess?
I don't do a lot of spot landings. I just recently started doing my high up motor kill accuracy landings. So I haven't done a touch and go. So every flight I've taken has been a straight inflate, launch, go.
Okay.
And I'll fly once or twice in an evening.
Okay.
Usually just once. It's rare that I go up twice.
All right. The questions are just rolling in, so I guess Will and Jim just go ahead and just start knocking them out. Wow.
Well, Angela Presley, this is a good question. How does Steve keep such a great positive attitude? Has flying influenced his positivity?
Usually copious amounts of drugs and alcohol.
Not while flying.
Oh, I know. It's like a bug. How do I keep a positive attitude? A lot of it is I have a lot of great paramotor friends that treat me extremely well. Man, that's weird. So they've been just instrumental to me being positive, and the more I get to meet people and stuff, the more it kind of inspires me to kind of maintain that and try to be more of a unifier. Like if I got to be more of a punching bag or someone that is a little more approachable when I go and visit, but definitely the community's helped a lot.
Right on, man. Kelby Cox is wondering, are you dating anyone? He's asking for a friend.
Nope, I have been single for a while, and I'm just glad I paramotor.
Right on, man. So there's a couple other questions, but I something I was reading your bio, and you've done a lot. But one thing I caught was that you took the controls of a Cessna. So what was that all about? Were you at one point interested in general aviation, and are you interested like in the future maybe to pick that up?
So I took an aeronautics class in high school, and part of it is you go up in a Cessna and you sit co-pilot. So it's not like I did very much. It's just, hey, we're already in the air. Why don't you bank and go up and down a little bit? And I remember the sensation at the time. It kind of felt like, in my words, it felt like you were driving on ice. And it's kind of funny because I actually have I have my very first flights ever recorded. I built my own helmet before I trained. And I said the same thing then. Now I don't feel that way anymore, but and I don't have any interest doing general aviation. When I was younger, I was more interested in aircraft, military technology and stuff like that. But general aviation, I don't want to have a cockpit in front of me. And I remember, I don't know if it's Robert Michaels or whatnot, but he had a U2 pilot on, and he kind of said the same thing. He's like, man, I get bored with a lot of stuff now. Paramotors is my jam. And I was like, that's cool. That's coming from a U2 pilot.
Yeah, right on, man.
So what I'm trying to say is general aviation sucks. No.
Well, you know what? I mean, for a lot of people, I mean, I come from a background of general aviation, and I can tell you that PPG has scratched that itch, and I don't have a desire to grab a Cessna and go flying right now. I mean, why?
Well, and I will never have the budget to do it, just with my personal finances. And I was in college for an awfully long time, but Paramotors is doable.
If you won $1 million and you could get trained to get your GA, would you do it? And that way,
No.
nope.
No,
I'm the same.
paramotoring's way too cool.
I'm the same way. It's like, there's just nothing out there that I want to do. Everything under FAR 103 is great. I mean, you can fly fixed wing, you can fly whatever you want to, as long as it's under 254 pounds, and get a foot drag it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I do love some of the people that come from GA that do this, especially like Todd Falstead. He has just been, he stops every once in a while and shoots me a lot of resources, especially if he knows I'm going to go on a trip. And man, that guy could just dump all sorts of information and insight on you, especially when stuff goes wrong in the community, like when we had that recent mid-air collision with an aircraft and stuff. I really admire like people with his background and his knowledge, because even though I'm not in general aviation, this is aviation, and you should eventually learn more than what you'll actually use too.
Yeah.
Looks like the questions are still rolling in. Jim or Will, want to ask any more questions?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, we got a question from Tony Marzano. He asked whether you get any slack from other PPG pilots for being crazy, or just for being who you are.
No, and that surprises me. I really thought, I think part of it is people realize I can't be bullied, because something I believe in for myself is not taking yourself too seriously. And so somebody could call me every name in the book and I'm just going to agree with them. So I don't know if they realize I just can't be bullied, or if they, I don't know. I really don't get much vitriol thrown my way. I'm sure there's people out there that are like talking behind my back, but I have actually been treated extraordinarily kindly. And there's been people I've been intimidated to approach, because I'm like, man, I'm a total joke, and this guy ain't going to want to see me. And then sure enough, I'm getting a Zoom call, or I mean like a Facebook call or something, and they meet me and I'm like, wow, like I used to be intimidated by you. And it's been a pleasant surprise. I'm very surprised.
That's awesome.
That is wonderful.
I've got David Wolf has a question for you, Steve. If you were to land in a tall grass 10 feet from fairway, like the grass at Hodges Field, who would be the first person you would hope to see to help pull you out?
Probably be David Wolf. Got me out pretty quick and rosetted up my wing all nice and professionally, and made fun of me for a little bit. And hey, you know what? So at fly-ins, I always land at the very edge of the runway. I don't want to be in anybody's way. I don't want to take chances. If I have to walk a mile to where I'm staying, it doesn't matter. That's what I do. Well, at Bad Apples, I still kill my motor when I'm coming in. Well, I killed it. I hit rotor. I was banking. I went to correct, and I went into a tall grass field. And sure enough, it's David Wolf with a camera. Like, what are you doing here, Steve? I'm like, oh. But yeah.
I've done the tall grass walk of shame many times, so no judgment here. So, yeah, I mean the chat has just been blowing up, Sean. I mean, so a lot of them are just like general, statements. But from what I'm gathering, people kind of like you, Steve.
That's weird. They must be doing copious amounts of drugs and alcohol as well.
As paramotor pilots,
something in common.
I think we probably are, yeah. But I guess that's why we like you.
Yeah, there you go.
It's weird. I'm going to have a panic attack later thinking about it.
Oh, still tons and tons of questions coming in. Jade, you're more than welcome to ask, or Linda, you're more than welcome to ask too. Who's next? Who wants to ask the questions? Anybody? Okay.
Well, Angela Preslick says, or wants to know who trained you, and you didn't miss it. So where'd you get your training, or what's your experience, or whatever you want to share?
I'll answer that question when I'm kind of finishing up the beginning story. So I got to phrase it a certain way.
All right, Angela, so stay tuned.
Yeah, you can't go away, Angela. Now you have to stay here and just watch intensely. Did you want to continue the story, Steve?
Yeah, I can finish up with that. So, checking out accident videos, watched everything, and one thing I didn't just like read everything about it, but I really studied the community and the history of it too. Like, who are the people in it? And luckily I had some awesome resources at the time. There's shows like this, David Wolf was extremely active back then. And it was a huge window into who flies and who's extremely active. But I also like looked into the past history of, you know, paramotoring used to have like a big wild west day, you know, where it's like, if you want to do this, I mean, it was more of a blood sport. And now it's become more of a very beginner focused safety, you know, really focused on the beginner and giving them all the tools for success, and just checking out that evolution and how people like going and whatnot help build up resources from back in the day. But even back then you would have personalities, you know, it wasn't just, you know, people like Dell that were a little crazy. There's a lot of people that were pretty ridiculous and maybe unscrupulous too. And so I spent a lot of time doing that. And because I had those resources, eventually when I started flying and going flyings and stuff, I recognized people. And which sometimes was kind of funny because I'd go up to somebody and I'd be like, hey, you, and then I'm Steve. And they're like, am I supposed to know who you are? I'm like, no, you're not. And so that was a really neat opportunity just to get introduced to the community. So watched a bunch of videos. I told myself if I got out of that really bad spell, I was going to commit to this. And sure enough, within 3 months, I found a new job that within about 6 months, they ended up paying me a heck of a lot more money. No stress. Like, in fact, I'm really uneasy about it. I in my career, I take things very seriously. I got to be stressed out. I got to feel like I'm working for it. But when I interviewed, I told them I was interested in getting this. And normally when you start a new job, you can't get vacation right off the bat. And nope, they were like, yeah, go take a week off, go train. And that was amazing. And since then, they've told me, like, never ask for permission to leave early to go fly. Just tell us when you're going to go do it. Like, and I can do a lot of my job remotely. And so I'm able to go on these 2-3 week trips quite often, as long as I hold down the fort. So it was kind of a perfect storm. It was absolutely incredible because I'm not flush with cash. I don't have a big budget. When I took my last trip down south, I had my truck and I had a pop-up tent and stuff. I don't have the budget for a trailer or RV. I have a budget to keep buying paramotor toys, and that's about it. So really a lot of things worked out for me. So I got the new job and I ended up training last April. And the training week was pretty difficult because we had bad weather quite a bit, really strong winds. The first day was okay. But I struggled with it bad because I used to be a grave digger and I used to be very fit, but because I went through a bunch of bad stuff, my body rotted. And so I was hurting. I was hurting really bad. And, but I just powered through it. Kiting didn't click with me at first. In fact, in my class, I was one of the worst students. And my much younger brother, who's 11 years younger than me, so he was in his mid-20s, decided he wanted to go with me just to experience the adventure. He didn't know what PPG even was. I made him read half the Bible, like going out to school. And he ended up being one of the best in the class. He picked up kiting right away. He took off first. I mean, he just killed it. And so we had bad weather. And then finally it came to a day where we had a window of opportunity and we went to trying to get up in the air. But because I had a break from bad weather, I lost some more kiting skills and whatnot. And my very first takeoff attempt, pulled the wing up, spun around. It was a reversible day and something wasn't going right. So I went to go kill the motor, but the throttle I had a kill switch next to the starter. And I accidentally hit the starter. My motor wasn't clutched and my wing came on me and my lines went in the prop and it was spinning fast enough where it severed a couple lines. And this was my personal wing that I bought. So it wasn't a trainer's wing, it was my wing, and broke a cage piece. And it was depressing because this was like my dream. My brother already flew at this point and I was getting down on myself, just getting depressed. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to fly this week. I might have to go home and come back. And ended up having a couple more bad days, but the very last day of training, we had a really good day and finally got up in there 4 times. My first takeoff, I literally butt slid into the air. I lost my footing, kept on full power, and my cage was dragging on the grass, and I still took off. And I was like, I don't care. I'm up. I'm happy. And it was just the most incredible thing ever. And it took about flight 3 during training where I got up there, and I even pulled out my phone, FaceTimed my girlfriend at the time, shaking my phone, thinking I was going to drop it, but I still did it. And but then I really took in like what I was doing, where I was, and there's just been a lot of really awful stuff I've been through in my life, not to mention the stuff that just happened to me. And that's when the waterworks came on too. Just crying with tears of joy. It was absolutely incredible. And so me and my brother came home, and I had bought my motor and wing well before training. The motor wasn't there, but I had my wing. So for the next 4.5 months, I kited at home all the time, like a lot. And that paid off big time down the road, because when I went to go return to the air, you usually don't have to worry about glider control. The only fine tuning I currently have to do is more of, if I'm doing a long taxi and it's not a whole lot of wind, maybe controlling some more pitch oscillation. But in terms of general glider control, I mean, it paid off. I would go to inner city parks that were heavily rotored. And at the time I was like, did I forget how to kite again? And I didn't quite realize how much rotor really impacts the air. But because I would kite in very difficult areas, when I would go to an open field with very smooth air, it was like easy mode. And even in the middle of the summer, it'd be 100 degrees and just humid. And I would still go out to the field, nil wind, and I would do 4 or 5 nil wind runs all the way across the field. I lost a lot of weight that summer, but I worked really hard at that. That was the one time I was actually a really good student when it comes to this. Is I spent a lot of time kiting. So I eventually decided not to go back to that first school, and I linked up with Nebraska Paramotor, who ordered a different motor for me and decided to he decided to fine tune me, get me any pieces that were missing, and send me back up in the air. But by that point, my brother decided he didn't want to do it anymore, so it was just me. But the moment I hit Nebraska Paramotor's field, it was just a game changer. The community there is just like a group of people that everybody's different, but is the most unpretentious place and group of people you've ever met. And they're all hilarious. And if you're serious about doing this, you just inherit a family immediately. So one of the huge motivating factors of like any time I've had like pre-flight anxiety or not having self-confidence, just anything that, there's such a big attrition rate in this, because you go to training and then you go home, and some people have to do this by themselves, and then you just find reasons not to do it. Well, I always had a reason, because I was like, not only am I going to go fly, even if I'm scared to do it, but I'm going to land. I'm going to hang out with these awesome people the next couple hours, having some beers, and just having the best evening ever, over and over and over again. It was just absolutely incredible. And one of my dreams that year was actually to make it to endless foot drag. And I didn't think I was going to make it, but sure enough, they got me there, and I got to fly.
That is really awesome. I mean, I'm really happy that you found a school that you really like, and you like the people involved, because that's one of the things that's difficult to do, is finding a school and finding people that you click with.
Right. And I just knew I clicked immediately. I've got stories to tell, but I just don't know if I can right now. They were people I just knew when I saw them first off, like, I'm home. I feel like I'm home. And I don't like saying that Nebraska Paramotor trained me, because one of the things I kind of tell new students is when you go to training and you're able to get up in the air and you have a stretch of good weather that's flyable, if your instructor asks you to run circuits, like go up and down, up and down, up and down, work as hard as you can while you're there. Because when you first go to training, you're kind of checked out of reality. And paramotoring's unusual. We're going up, we're flying under a bed sheet of strings. But when you're training and you're staying there and you're there every day, it kind of normalizes in your brain. So when you're asked to do circuits and push a little harder, you can. Well, Nebraska Paramotor, I didn't really stay there. I'm a 45-minute drive from them. I'd work, I'd come in the evenings. I kind of lost the zone. So when I was asked to start doing circuits and doing other stuff that'd make me a better pilot, I really wouldn't do it. Like, he would send me up in the air and I would just hightail it downwind and climb as high as I could. And 10 minutes later, I'd hear on the radio, "Why the heck are you over there? You come back here right now and you land." And it would take me forever to get back because I'd be going up a headwind. And, you know, on a night where I should have had like 6 flights, I'd have like 2. And it's because I was like working during the day, had too much time to think about it. So that pre-flight anxiety would hit me again and I'd be tired. And, you know, behind the smiling face and stuff, I've got issues. Like, I've got huge self-confidence issues and stuff. So I'd go through this mental torture. So, but if I was still in that zone and I probably would have started with him, I would be twice the pilot today. Like, it's crazy to think about, but at least I'm still growing towards that.
Absolutely. Do you have a YouTube? Because I don't think that you sent us the YouTube channel.
So I've got a YouTube. It's called Hot Buttered Productions. It was a mutual channel with me and my brother that I started kind of before paramotoring. So I go by Hot Buttered Steve. It's an old email handle when I was in high school. Essentially, it's from a Drew Carey show episode. I don't know if you ever watched that back in the 90s. But yeah, it got a ridiculous name. I wanted to start it years ago because back when I was married, me and my wife had really funny banter, and and we were into stuff like raising chickens and doing house stuff and whatever. And I thought it'd make something a little entertaining. And so I started one eventually because I was going to do cooking and stuff. I'm a pretty good vegetarian cook, and well, I'm not vegetarian, but I specialize in that and some other stuff. But then I started flying paramotors. And I'm like, this is way more interesting than anything else I'm doing. It just became its own beast. And I'm kind of glad I started that channel because I made a lot of episodes when I was just kiting before I started flying. And I would just go out there and sometimes I'd stick a mic on and I would talk open and honestly, but then I'd start cracking jokes and just being sarcastic and stuff. And I thought it was just trash. I was like, I'm just doing this for fun and whatever. And then I didn't realize that when you got a paramotor YouTube channel, if you get like 200 views on a video, that might not seem like a lot, but there's not a lot of paramotor people, and chances are it's mostly paramotor people that are watching you. And so when I would go to a fly-in, it was just like, "Hey, you're Steve. I'm going to come talk to you." And then I started making friends that way too. So I was kind of glad I did it, even though I really felt kind of stupid and silly for doing it at first, and I still kind of do.
Okay. We still have lots of questions in the super chat. Jim or Will?
Yeah, there was one. I was wondering about your first takeoff. Is there any chance that you have footage of that?
Yeah, I've got it on my YouTube channel.
Oh, wow. I got to look that up.
That is, you'll be able to, there's the video's called like taking my brother on a paramotor adventure. It's on there. My first takeoff was freaking atrocious.
I think that would be very interesting. And it's enlightening too about getting off the ground, even though you're in a tough position.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was in horrible shape. And then I got in horrible shape again this last winter. I had to work that up.
I actually watched that video already, but I'll have to go back and watch it again.
So that was your one of your butt takeoffs, huh?
Yeah.
You are so lucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was close.
Never had to take off. Well, no, at Salton Sea I did something. I'll have to backtrack to that. Yeah. Ooh. So after my initial round of training with Nebraska Paramotor, I made it to, man, I can't watch myself talk like at the same time. I made it to endless foot drag. I only flew once there. I was pretty timid, but the one flight I got there was actually kind of cool because, you know, endless foot drag is a pretty busy fly-in. And I had the guys from Parajet watching me take off, and I went to go inflate, and there were people in front of me and stuff. And I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to taxi around them. I'm going to zigzag over here, zigzag over here. Okay, I'm clear. Get up in the air. One of my buddies links up with me, and I had an amazing time. But I also had an amazing time because I finally got to meet everybody, or not everybody, but so many people that I knew their names, people that have reached out to me. I met Josh Perry from PPG Zone, who I ended up traveling to Salton Sea with. And you just make these instant friends. And I know it's not the same for everybody. I can be pretty gregarious and a type A personality sometimes, which is weird because a lot of my paramotor friends can be very introverted and not be really into people or be anxious around them. So it's kind of weird that they tolerate me, but it just changed me going there. Just absolutely changed me. So did that, came home, flew with Nebraska Paramotor a bunch, and then started talking to Josh Perry quite a bit from PPG Zone. And I made a joke on one of these shows that I wanted to start a show called Mystery Science Paramotor 3000, where we're silhouettes that move just like the show. And then we watch other people's paramotor videos and crack jokes. He's like, that's a brilliant idea. Let's do it. So we did it for a little while. And I was like, this is freaking silly. And eventually him and I decided to drive out to Salton Sea. And we linked up with a guy named Aaron I out of Missouri. And these are both Kylo students. And we drove out to the Salton Sea Fly-in and got there plenty early before most people even got there. So I got a lot of flying in before the skies got congested. And had a blast doing that. Everybody came in. Kylo parked next to us. He took us up for a canyon run. There's mountains and canyons nearby. The air's so smooth there, you can fly all day. I hit my first thermals there, but at Salton Sea, they're not violent ones that you just feel like you're in a balloon. And that was just incredible. You meet more and more people. That's when I linked up with Iris Paramotor. We did the drag show flight. That ended up on a Tucker Gott video. I woke up one morning in my camper getting texts going like, what the heck, Steve? And I watched this Tucker Gott video. And he's like, man, this is some of the questionable stuff on Facebook. I'm like, man, I'm just a human dumpster fire. So I'm generally a pretty consistent with my launches. I don't have a problem botching them. I do need to work on my posture a little bit. Sometimes when I get lifted up, I'll get swung because I'm leaning forward a little too much, and that causes you to sit in your seat. But when I first went to Salton Sea, my first takeoff attempt, I was absolutely exhausted. I was so excited to be there. I hadn't eaten in like 36 hours. And I was just tired. And my first takeoff attempt, I actually sat in my seat and I dragged the ground pretty good. Still took off the same way. And didn't have a nick on my prop, but Salton Sea is dusty mud. It's not like sand that's going to really rough you up. But yeah, my very first flight there, you just see this big cloud of dust. And I've got video of that. Josh Perry and Aaron and I were up in the air. Josh Perry's like just cussing and like, oh, Steve, just crashed. Oh, no. And it's pretty amusing to watch. It's ridiculous. But after Salton Sea, we immediately went to Glamis in California. And Glamis is just absolutely incredible. It's desert, but the dunes are massive. I mean, I don't know how I can describe them without over exaggerating, but some of them must be over 10 stories tall. Like you feel like you're on another planet. And, I'm flying there with, another 50 people, and that was just incredible. But I saw my first accident there too. As I was coming into land, there was a lady that spun her glider and crash landed right outside my camper. So I was with her until they called life flight for her. So that was pretty tough to see. I think she came out of it all right, but that was also when Chris Holbert crashed the very next day. I was about a mile away from him. So after Glamis, we went to Arizona Flying Circus, and Flying Circus has a bit of a reputation of being a pretty tough fly-in. There ain't a ton of room. Someone had passed away there the year prior. And I wasn't sure if I was going to fly there. if the winds were coming in a certain way, your takeoff runway was quite short. And I need a lot of takeoff runway. I taxi quite a bit. But sure enough, there, the first day I got there, I was just like, I'm going to power through it. I'm going to do it. And I got up and I flew Arizona Flying Circus and made the whole circuit. And it was just incredible. But then soon after, Kyle O sends us a pin. Hey, meet us at Action Airport. Well, about, I don't know how far away it is from the airport, but it's near this giant open pit copper mine. And Chris Holbert actually like foot dragged the bottom of it where they had like this toxic pool. And I got to do my first really major cross country. But when I took off with everybody, I was the very last person that took off. And I was following a friend, eventually lost sight of him. We had to take a very specific flight path to get there because of the airport. We had to go around these mountains and then cross the mountains a certain way so we didn't get just rotored. Well, I eventually lost everybody. And I was like, you know what? I looked at Google Maps before I took off. How hard is it to find a giant hole in the ground? And so I went and I actually found it. And I flew over dead center. It's the first time I ever thought to myself, I'm actually afraid of heights right now. It was the weirdest sensation I've ever had flying when you're over like a giant 1,000-foot deep hole in the ground. It was crazy. And I wasn't going to do anything ridiculous. I'm a pretty safe flyer and I want to be conservative about my decision making. But I wanted to skim the edge. But I made the bad decision of skimming the edge, the opposite side of where the wind was coming from. So as I was coming down low, I was getting just rocked all over the place and ended up climbing out and going back to the airport. But on that trip back, I ended up hitting a ton of headwind. And I go full trims out and I'm like, man, that sun's setting. It was getting dark quick. And I thought for sure I was going to have to land out, which was in a tough area. And it was just nothing but prickly bushes and cacti in that area. But made it to the airport in the very last minute. Thought I got lost for a second. And just crazy. So I think that was the last flight of that circuit. And then recently I took a trip to the southeast, culminating in Bad Apples. The first place I went to was Dauphin Island, Alabama. And it was pretty tough finding places on the East Coast to really fly. My goal was Galveston or Corpus Christi because the beaches are huge. You can camp on them. So I could office camp and fly exactly in one spot. And my goal was to have those laminar beach winds so I could do some two-step takeoffs. Well, Galveston was blown out. So I had to find a backup spot quick. So I found Dauphin Island from a buddy, David Rose, kind of helped me find it. And I'm surveying Dauphin Island and looking at sectionals. You know, is there a lot of military aircraft training going on? And, you know, what's this place about? And I go online, I find some videos and I see, hey, Minyard's been down there. So I ring up Minyard and I'm like, hey, Minyard, this is your bro, Steve. It didn't go down like that. He's like, who are you again? But I was like, hey, I'm going to fly there. And can you give me a site brief? Can you tell me about it and whatnot? And he's like, well, what's your flying style? And I'm like, I want to get up. I want to get over people. I don't want to harass people and find an empty spot and play around it. And he's like, oh, great. So he gave me the lowdown of the area and everything, which was super, super helpful. But Dauphin Island is a tough place to fly out of because you can't just really go off the beaches because you would be huffing your equipment a half a mile to get past the crowds. There's no really good beach access. But there is an airport that only sees about 6 planes a day, but it's on the north side of the island. So if you have winds coming off the sea, it's going over the island, all these huge trees and condos, and it stirs up the air pretty good. So I go over to this airport and no planes are there. It's nice and quiet. And I start trying to kite because I usually kite when I'm at a new spot. And over here, I'm like, man, I'm on a struggle bus kiting. Well, there's a rule. If you can't kite in it, don't fly in it. And what do? I set up anyways. And I'm like, I'm going. And so the windsock's going this way. My wing's pulling me this way. And I take off. But for like the next like 800 feet, I'm just getting tossed all over the place. It was absolutely horrific. Later on, Minyard would be like, yeah, I should have told you, you got to take off at the end of the runway. but I didn't want to do that because the runway actually jets out into the sea. So it's extremely dangerous. You would take off directly over water. And I made sure I had flotation on, but a flotation isn't a guarantee that it's going to save your life. You still have to do bailout procedures and whatnot. And if you don't have time to unbuckle and stuff in flight, you're putting yourself in a lot of risk. So it was an area way above my skill level. So I clear the rotor. I start climbing. I'm probably maybe 1,500, 2,000. And I'm trying to cross the island to cut over to congestion so I can get to the other side where there's beaches. And I have an out in case I have a motor out, because the north side's nothing but docks. And I look in front of me. I'm like, oh man, I'm level with the clouds. I've never been level with the clouds. I always used to like flying high, but in Nebraska, if you fly in the evenings, the thermals have already kicked up the clouds so high, sometimes you got to be dressed for it. And so, yeah, I finally had my cloud experience. And it wasn't like you get above overcast and you see this sea of clouds. So I haven't seen that yet, but I got my cloud experience in, and I was just absolutely, it felt like my first flight all over again. So did that, and then I flew to an empty side of the beach and then played around in a low area where nobody was around, and came back, landed. I did a test run where I took off to see if it was still rotored, and sure enough, it was. I'm like, I can't even stick a landing here with power on. So I landed at the end of the runway just fine, and I sat there for like 2 hours, just like taking it in what I had just done. It was like the most amazing feeling I've ever had in my life with my clothes on. It was just incredible. Just absolutely beautiful. And after that, ended up finding a friend on the Florida Panhandle, flew out of his beach, never got the beach winds I wanted. They're always squirrely, coming inland, all sorts of stuff. So I never had that, but it was finally fun seeing people and flying. Dauphin Island was also dangerous because I didn't have a wingman. And that was the first time I was truly solo. So that's nuts. And then after that, I went to Bad Apples and flew out of there, landed in the tall grass, and of course, harassed a bunch of people. And it's just been crazy. I've just had an incredible year. Like, I don't get it. I thought I was going to be a solo person, like just a loner when I first got into this. And now I get to meet and hang out with so many like awesome people, and just made some incredible friends. It's cool.
That thumbs up definitely helps us a lot. So thank you very, very much. All right.
Yeah,
So,
thank you so much.
and also too, I cannot believe that, we already burned through an hour on this podcast. It's absolutely amazing. So you guys are awesome. You guys totally rock.
I've got a question for him.
Okay.
So I understand you got your PPG 2 rating right now, right? And you're working on your PPG 3.
Well, so this year my goal is to stop joyriding. I want to really work on the basics and the fundamentals. So my first things I've been doing is I'll climb up to like 700, 1,000 feet, kill my motor, and go for a spot land. And the first time I attempted it, and this was like a week or two ago, like I didn't think I had any landing accuracy whatsoever, but I would do power on dry runs where I'd climb up, keep my motor on, then go down and try to gauge my glide ratio. And I was like, man, I bet my accuracy is horrible. I always tell people I have bad aim, just look at my bathroom. And my first attempt of like climbing super high and coming down, I literally landed 8 feet from the center of the target. And I was like, man, that's lucky. That's gotta be luck. And then I tried one again the other day, and I didn't get that close, but I probably got about 20 feet from my target. And I was like, man, so I want to keep doing stuff like that. One thing I really struggled with starting out was landings. Like when I was on the Salton Sea trip, I didn't stick any of my landings at Salton Sea. It wasn't until about Glamis where it started coming together for me. Landings were really a 50-50, like, and they were never bad. My flare timing was decent, so I would never like flare too early and drop like a rock. It was more of I would come in and I'd do a hot slide on my legs, but it wasn't bending my frame. I wasn't getting hurt. And eventually on the Salton Sea trip, I realized within myself that I'm not burying my brakes. And so whenever I'd come in for a landing, usually when I come in and I'm getting close, I'll pull a little bit of brake just to slow me down. And then at the very last second, I just tell myself bury. And I would just bury no matter what, and I just started sticking every single one of them. One thing I want to do and I've been good ever since, but one thing I want to do is a lot of the people I fly with at Nebraska Paramotor, they got their foot drag landings down. I mean, they just come in hot, dragging their feet the whole way. Sometimes they'll just like almost get down to like a knee and just go right back up. It looks beautiful and smooth. And I've been able to do that twice. I've got a video of me basically doing the splits, and I'm just dragging with my legs down, bury, and I pull myself back up and run it out. So I want to get that smoothed out a little bit, but landings, I was just on a huge struggle bus there for a while.
I think a lot of people struggle with landings. I may be wrong, so we'll go ahead and ask the 35-ish people that we have in the chat, guys, gals. When you come in for a landing, are your landings dialed in? How long did it take for you to dial in your landings? Would definitely like to know. If you guys are able to give us thumbs up, that really helps us a lot, and we definitely appreciate it. We got 35 people, 21 likes. Let's see if we can get that up to at least 30. Any other questions? We are in part 2 of our podcast with
Tony Marzano was wondering what wing he flies and what motor.
All right.
Yep. So the motor I fly a 185 on a Parajet Maverick, and the wing I fly, which I trained on, is a 24-meter Dudek Solo. I'm in the middle of the weight range on it, so it feels a little boaty, but it's a super awesome B wing. If you get into oscillations, it stabilizes itself, and I've got a great trim range, and it's stupid easy to inflate. I absolutely love it. And it's probably going to be my forever wing too, because I haven't even tied in 2D steering yet. And all the pros, when they talk about progressing into energy management, other things, they always say that it takes a lot more work to do certain things on A and B wings compared to advanced gliders, where you can just pull a string and something's going to happen. While A or B wing, you got to work for it, and you got to do it correctly in order for that wing to do that thing. So I think I'm going to be on that for a really long time. And if I end up even upgrading in a year, I'll probably just go down to a 21-meter Dudek Solo and just be a little bit more loaded on it.
One thing that, Steve, that I found that really helped me with my landings, I know you said you got them dialed in. I don't know about where you are, but here, the difference between summer and winter, I have to retrain myself when spring and summer starts coming around, because the barometric pressure changes so much. And so one of the things that really helps me out is touch and goes. I got a really long strip runway, and I can just do touch and goes all the way down that strip. And not only that, then you'll have 100 flights in no time.
Yeah, it seems like if you're able to do touch and goes, a couple touch and goes per flight, I think that you can really dial in your landings and, of course, your takeoffs too. It's really amazing. We got 2 people. It looks like they've asked or answered that questions. We got Adam Giles said dialed in for me, but it took 100 flights. Jeremy said it took about 50 landings not to be afraid of landing. LOL. That's pretty interesting.
I found back when I was struggling with them too, when I actually did a couple foot drag landings, a lot of that was, I'd still pull a little bit of one when I was getting kind of close, but I really wouldn't do anything until my foot touched. Like when my foot touched, then it was like a hot stove reaction where I was like, ah, and I'd be able to drag my feet and run it out. But that I wasn't able to replicate it all the time after that, because I still wasn't fully varying my brakes all the way down to my butt.
Have you ever taken a wrap when you come in for a landing? Just wrap your...
No, I've thought about it. I probably eventually will, or adjust my brake lines. Who knows? Right now, it's all going good for me. My last flight, it was absolutely nil wind by the time I came down, and I thought, I don't know if I'm going to break my streak here or not. And I came in, and I was like, my foot touched, and I was like, this didn't feel too hot, And my glider, because I'm in the middle of the weight range, and I usually keep it always trimmed out at least 2 or 3. It still comes in plenty slow, and it's really not that bad. It's just, mostly just making sure I fully flare, because that's what I found really made it so like my posture would really get me out of my harness and kind of get me upright, because when I wasn't doing it, I always felt like I was back and I was going to slide my legs. So whenever I've got my brakes all the way down, I feel like I'm pretty upright.
My dog is choking, asked a question. He said, "Are you going to EFD?"
You bet I am. I'm going to harass the crap out of you too. Last time when I first showed up to EFD, because I knew who he and Mark George were, I stood by their tent with their Evo Rebels. And I was like, I kept yelling like, "Don't buy this stuff. They're just snake oil salesmen." And I was just like, just being ridiculous.
Well, hopefully they took it as you being ridiculous and funny.
That's a gamble you got to take if you're going to be funny. You got to ride that line.
Any other questions on the panel?
Well, there was one question. Yeah,
Okay.
we did miss. Shane Wyman wants to know, do you wear a sports bra under your Nirvana shirt?
I don't know. How does it look? I probably had to earlier this year when I was about 35 pounds heavier.
Yeah, you did say in the pre-show that you go to these fly-ins and you lose 15 pounds going to the fly-in. Can you tell us about that? How do you lose weight going to a fly-in?
Well, those are the more extreme fly-ins. So like Salton Sea, that was a 3-week trip. And so I wasn't just like at Salton Sea. I was at Salton Sea Canyons. And I was going to a desert doing this. And, you know, I just not eating as much. And I'm staying up late, partying. After EFD, I was like, I got to get an electric vehicle. So I bought a Varla. So you just stay up late riding around. And I don't know. I just operate on a different energy level when I'm going to those things, and I check out from the real world, and my body just kind of responds that way.
You got a electric what?
So I bought a Varla scooter. So when my first fly in EFD, at first I was just walking up and down the runway. I didn't have any wheels whatsoever. And I was like, man, I'm chafing doing this. I don't like it. And one of my friends had a bicycle, and I ended up jacking it the entire trip. But after that, I went and I sprung for. I didn't want a one wheel because I didn't want to hurt myself on one. The only injury at EFD last year was my buddy who went too fast on his one wheel, got kicked off, and his collarbone went bloop. And that was the only injury there. And I saw people get dragged all over the place, flying in ridiculous winds. And sure enough, he was the only one that got hurt. And I was like, no, I want something practical, because with a barless scooter, you're less likely to get like thrown off randomly because you went too fast. But it's also a utility. I can wear my paramotor in my equipment. So if I go out to a field and the wind direction's coming a certain way where I've got to carry all my equipment across the field, I can just hop on my scooter, carry everything out. I'm not exhausted, and I've got great balance on it. I feel stable. So it's more like a tool, and it's awesome. And I've only gone over the handlebars once, and it's because I was drunk and I hit sand.
Well, Mark George just posted on Facebook earlier today about one wheel injuries. So that seems to be a real thing, is the one wheel injuries. Hey, anybody in the super chat? You have a one wheel? Have you got injured? Do you recommend something else? I recommend the little 9-bot segways. Those things are awesome. Looks like Angela Perslick says, do you fly in the winter? Are you a winter flyer?
So this last winter I did prepare for it. So I bought those motion heat gloves from Canada. So they're glove liners, and you have to put a shell over them if you want the full effect. But when I flew with them, they would get so hot. I bought the 16-volt batteries for them. They'd get so hot I didn't need shells up here in Nebraska. But I was totally prepared to fly in the winter. I flew Christmas Eve with Nebraska Paramotor. January, I don't think I flew in January, but I ended up traveling south. Did a bunch of flying. Then I came back and flew in March. And so I didn't fly in what I consider winter conditions, because I went to high school in Minot, North Dakota. I know what Canadian weather's like. I've been up in Winnipeg. That's what I call winter. So I haven't flown in that yet, but I'm prepared to.
You're invited up here this winter if you want to come up. We'll take you flying in the cold.
Well, don't you have to have a license to fly in Canada, though? You can't just, it's more regulated than here.
That's true, but we can get you a student license.
Okay. I love those motion heat liners though, because I hate launching with gloves because of dexterity, but because the motion heat is liners, it's still doable. And then you can just strap on shells and then put your shells on up in the air. So I thought that was pretty nice.
Hey, Jim, can you find out how much it costs for a student license if we decide to go up to Canada? And how long it would take to get that? Is there something that we can do as far as like go up there and or do something online and then get there to get our student license to fly? If you can.
I also have to pay for a Canadian pardon though. Because and I know this because I used to go to Winnipeg, Manitoba all the time. I have a ton of friends there. But I was stupid when I was younger and I've gotten a DUI before. Well, in Canada, they consider that extreme criminal offense, and I have to pay $500 and get a pardon from a judge to go back in the country. Yeah.
Things that we get to learn about Mr. Steve on this podcast.
One of the things I wanted to talk about that I try to be very open with people, because I'm active in the groups and whatnot, and I noticed there wasn't a lot of talking until I started openly admitting to it, but pre-flight anxiety and how that impacts people. Because mine is pretty brutal. People assume, people have assumed that I'm a very active flyer, that, I've got like 150 flights and I'm all this and that. And I try to tell them that actually I'm kind of a huge loser. And I've been saying that for a long time, but I also hate saying it these days because I know there's a lot of people that are like, man, Steve looks like he has way too much fun. My Facebook's been nothing but paramotor people now. It's taken over. So if you're a friend of mine, you'll just see me like having fun doing a smile. But in the real world, if I know I'm going to go out to fly, the anxiety kills me. Like it's just mental torture. Not to mention from stuff from the past and whatnot, I've got serious, huge problems with like depression and anxiety. Like my brain is just not nice to me at all. And so I started talking a lot about, especially anxiety with flying. And sure enough, a lot of people came out of the woodwork where they're like, 50, 75 flights in, and it still hits me, or 100. I've flown with people that they have over 100 flights and it gets them, or they can't even, or their bump tolerance. They'll get up and if they hit a couple bumps, they got to land. And all of a sudden we start coming together, and it helps to know that you can feel that bad and you're not alone. There's other people that, they're not right beside you. They're in another state, but that feeling is normal. And the only way to get past it, which is the hardest thing ever, is to keep doing it more. I find that kiting helps me a lot. It goes away for me as soon as I clip in. Like when I get my motor on, I'm clipping in. It's like I got a job to do. I'm ready to rock, and I kind of check out. I lose all my fears, but I'll have certain periods where.
Is it just pre-flight, or is it clipping in? Is it
not clipping in, but it's pre-flight. If I know I'm going to fly and it's noon that day, like it's going to start hitting me.
Yeah,
and
me too.
And I think part of it is for me too that this has brought me such joy and happiness from not just flying, but all the people that I'm also kind of wired that if I'm happy, I get really suspicious. Like there's got to be something wrong. Is Paramotor eventually going to break up with me? I absolutely torture myself left and right doing it, but it's kind of come to a head for me personally, where it kind of goes away when I do a lot. Like when I was on my Salton Sea trip, at the end of it, I was just jonesing. I was like, I don't have this anxiety anymore. I want to go back up, but then I'll have a big long break. It'll come back. And part of it now, I know if I want to improve and grow even more and more aggressively, I've got to take care of myself. I've got to eat right. I've got to get some fitness in just so I can feel good mentally and physically. I drink more than I should. Alcohol's a depressant. That needs to get replaced, especially if I want to be a little more serious about doing this. Just anything. So the joys that I have from doing this, I have just thinking about doing it that day, where I'm that Jones, like, hey, I'm going to go fly. I'm jazzed up right now. And the mental game is absolutely huge, because I know the attrition rate in this is just atrocious. And it takes a lot of work, and it's not necessarily easy. It's not like you can go back and say, oh, hey, I've had a perfect life. It's just nothing but puppy dogs and fairy tales. No, you gotta conquer demons. You gotta take care of yourself. You gotta treat yourself well. You need the support from your friends and your community. Like, I'm extremely fortunate, and I'm lucky to have what I have, because if I didn't have like Nebraska Paramotor in that community, I wouldn't be here today. I bet you. I don't know. That's hard to say, but they were just such a big driver and motivator that even if I felt like hell, I just knew for a fact if I put one leg in front of another, got in my truck, drove to Omaha, I was going to have the best night ever. And I would drive out the whole way saying, oh, I'm going to botch my landing. I'm going to botch my takeoff, even though I'm very good at, I'm not very good. My takeoffs are consistent. You know, I'm just going to screw something up. And then every night I go out, I have the most amazing time ever. And I have the most amazing time with my friends. And I go home and I feel like a superhero for the next 2 days. Like, just every single time. It keeps getting better and better. And so I kind of, it's been a thing where I need to have some self accountability and realize, hey, I need to work on myself too.
Absolutely. I would like to talk a little bit more about the pre-flight anxiety, because I haven't heard about it, and I think that I need to know about it. So anybody in the super chat, if you have pre-flight anxiety, let us know what that's about and how you deal with it. And Steve, if you can go into what's going on and how you get through the pre-flight anxiety, because like I said, I haven't heard about that before.
Yep. I mean, part of it is just, you know, for some of us, our brains can't register the activity of paramotoring as normal. Like, we'll get into this because we research so much, like, hey, I can do this safely. You know, people would get injured or die because they land in water, run into a power line, or they do acro near the ground. Or sometimes they don't prepare for an out if they have an engine out and they go in and do something. But there's a way to do it where, I mean, look at how many schools that we have. Like, when was the last time you heard of somebody like, man, somebody got their back broken during training or died? Like, and those are just students just starting out, let alone someone that's, you know, kited for a long time and goes and flies and makes smart decisions. Like, you just don't hear it. And every time there's something weird that goes on, there's usually a reason. You know, if a line breaks, like an A line, it tends to be a super old glider that should have been retired a long time ago, and the person was doing a sat on it. Like, there's always like logical things. So like, if you're careful, you do your pre-flight very well, and you just go out and make smart decisions and do it safely. But your brain can't register that, okay, I'm going to go on a bed sheet hanging by strings, and it is whatever. Now, for me, as soon as I clip in and I'm ready to inflate and take off, that all goes away and I become jazzed up and I'm just ready to rock. So I'm kind of fortunate in that, because I know people that they still get, you know, they get cold sweat on takeoff. I know people who they get it when they're experiencing turbulence in the air. I've gotten rocked all over the place in the air, like bad, and not like paraglider level bad, but for a beginner paramotor pilot, I flew in some bad air, and I tend to laugh when I hit it. It doesn't mean I always enjoy it, but like, even if when I struggled with landings, I know people that are afraid of landings when they can't hit it. For me, even if I knew I wasn't confident of getting a landing, like, it still was funny to me. Like, you can hear it in some of my videos where I'm just like coming down, I'm like, am I going to stick it or am I going to slide on my butt? What's going to happen? And I still had fun with it. It's just that pre-day, like, just thinking like, I'm going to go out and do this just because my brain couldn't register it as normal. And again, I'm just not used to something bringing me that much joy and happiness. So I'm like, something's not right. I'm not looking at something. I have a very hard time of living in the moment, which I'm glad I have PPG, because it's kind of taught me to do that. But there's a lot of weird psychology that kind of goes into this.
Interesting. Jade, you mentioned in the super chat, I see that that you have butterflies and stuff too. Can you tell us about how that feels and how you get over it?
Yeah, I'm not sure how really to get over it yet because it still happens at times. Like Eric would be like, let's go out flying. And I'm like, I'd try to come up with every excuse not to. I think part of it though was seeing a couple bad crashes.
I see.
Um,
Yeah, so Tony Marzano said, who doesn't get butterflies when you're first starting out? I guess that makes sense. And John Wayne said, nil wind, 106 heat index, Adam 80, taller grass, short runway, immediate 180-degree turn. I was anxious. So yeah, I guess people can be anxious and understanding what's going on and how to take off. But thank you very much for letting me know and talking about, pre-flight anxiety. Very interesting. Honestly, I think that I was built to fly because I was never anxious. I was always excited. It's like, I can't wait to go fly. Never felt afraid. Always been really confident in my gear. Definitely confident after an SIV course, which reminds me, are you planning on doing an SIV course anytime soon?
When I get the appropriate level of experience. Now, I absolutely want to go visit Andrew Fuller, but at the moment it's because I just want to go to his house and play with his house pigs and ducks and stuff. I don't know if you saw the video of him getting chased by one of his ducks and then he falls down and it sits on his back, but I finally got to hang out with Andrew Fuller and that guy's pretty cool. I'm pretty upset with myself. I didn't listen to his he did an SIV just seminar at Bad Apples. I wish I would have listened to it, but when I get to a point where I'm ready for something like that, yeah, I'll go do it. But I've heard from other people. I think just recently, like Mark and Elena Honeycutt too, like you can end up going there too early. I just want to make sure all my fundamentals, kiting and everything is just dialed in. So when I go do that, it's extremely productive.
Sure, that's good advice, Steve. That's really good advice.
But to backtrack towards, the pre-flight anxiety and stuff like that, when I clip in, everything checks out. When I fly, I check out. Like, it's incredible. But I've also noticed psychologically, if you take a look at some of the reasons people get into this, there's something that works for us too. Because for me, I went through a very devastating portion of my life. My fellow students I first trained with, they had all just been through tragic accidents where they lost grown children and in just tragic ways, like a military plane disintegrating and lost a child, or a hit and run drunk driver. And I've met people who do this that have gone through soul crushing experiences, and this has become sort of a way to live hard, to kind of live again. And so on the flip side of it, you have people that kind of lose their fears and stuff because it's almost like you lose the will to live, and this is the only way to live again. So you're able to really kind of push through and make it happen. I definitely felt it was that way for me. Like it's almost like I don't care if I die doing this. Almost, I don't fly that way, but just start off.
Steve, I can so relate to everything you're saying tonight. I mean, when I did my first, very first tandem, it wasn't really all about the tandem. It was, like I said, when you go up in the air like that and you've never done it before, all these emotions come out just out of nowhere. And
yeah,
I still get emotional thinking about it, and I'm still on the high about it, and it opened up a whole new perspective of life for me and all different things.
I was so happy when I saw that you did it. I was so happy for you because my own mother did it, and I had to physically pry her out of the house to go do a tandem. Like, my mother life's beating her up bad. I mean, and she's like somebody that just can't get out anymore and whatever. And she used to be the strong, inspirational figure for me and to shape me. And it kind of hurts to see her kind of weaken like that. And she didn't want to go. And, Nebraska Paramotor took her up. And when she landed, I mean, she was just like, I want every photo and video all you guys took in for a straight week. It was just nothing
Yep.
but that. She absolutely loved it. And so when I
Yep.
saw you went up, I was like, oh, I'm so happy for her.
When you told me your mom went up, that was one of the, that inspired me. Like, I need to do this, but it was so crazy because it wasn't like I thought about it for months, you know, I'm like, God, this would be really cool. But it wasn't like I got up in the morning that morning to go to church and say, man, I'm going to do a tandem today, you know. It was just one of those feelings. I just went there and I just rolled with it. And then before you know it, I was up in the air and I couldn't.
I think tandems are fun. Like
I did. I want to do it again. I didn't
take a tandem before I trained. My first time up in the air, that was the first time I was solo. But you know, I did a foot launch tandem at Salton Sea, and then Nebraska Paramotor gave me a tandem to test out a new tandem wing at Bad Apples, and that's so much fun. Foot launch tandems without spreader bars are extremely awkward because Irish Paramotor didn't have them. And I was sitting in his lap and drag, and I was like, I don't know how you're okay with this.
That would be really hard.
Like it was kind of awkward.
That would be really hard for
me. It's kind of hot too.
Running thing, yes. But like I said, Steve, you are an inspiration to so many people and to me. You know, you're growing experience in the sport, and it does. It's not all about just getting up in the air, you know. And look at me, I'm cool. I'm so understanding the sport now. Like there's so much more to it. So like I said, thank you for your honesty today and everything, Steve.
So I'd like to bring up Ryan Hanthorn's comment. He says, I think even you're very experienced, if you make a mistake and you fail a launch or break equipment, it has an impact on confidence. Yeah, I agree.
He's got that experience. Ryan Hanthorn's like my original paramotor friend. He's the very first person. I never met him, but I found him online. He lives near me, and he was the very first person I reached out to about paramotoring. And he was like, "Don't buy first. Don't buy your equipment first. Come train at Nebraska Paramotor." I didn't do that. I didn't do anything he said. And then 6 months later, like it all came full circle, and I ended up flying with Ryan. And it was kind of funny. One of my first flights at Nebraska Paramotor, and again, he didn't technically train me because I didn't listen to him. But one of my first flights, I packed a selfie stick. I had it out. I was making stuff, and I saw Ryan coming up next to me, and he's wanting to give me a tip touch. And it was a perfect shot because I had my camera out, and he does that, and I make like a third of his wing collapse, and like it's just ridiculous. And then I went to my first fly-in with him, and it was just crazy how things just did a 180. And I don't know, it's been too neat. Like
No, I was just going back to Bad Apples. You know, you talked about landing out where I saw David running down the field for you. And then a bunch of us gals were videoing the tandem guys taking off, Chris and Eric taking off with, I think, Karen's daughter and her boyfriend. And gentleman rolled his trike. So we went over there and helped him, and he's hanging upside down. And I'm like, are you okay? You know, and shut your engine off. And he's like, yep, I'm okay. And his buddy came over. He looked at me and he goes, in front of everybody, my pride is hurt. I said, you know what? Who cares?
No.
And of course, the next
and you're
day,
absolutely go on.
The next day we all lined up to go take off. I'm the first one to go. I mowed through that long thing because I had some lines tangled up and came back out. I'm like, what is wrong? And it's like, I felt so stupid, but I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I fixed it and I went back up. So
yeah, this is like, that's what I love about paramotoring. So like I used to be a collegiate musician, super competitive, people yelling at you if you mess up, whatever. Here, it doesn't matter. It's your own personal journey. And in the eyes of many paramotor pilots too, like when I was so afraid to ask to get into the sport, because I'm like, oh, it's an extreme sport. And like, who am I? And then you get into it and you don't realize like everybody flies. It doesn't matter your body type, age, or really anything. And in the eyes of many people, if you just started kiting a paragliding wing, that makes you a rock star. Like if I meet a person, they're like, yeah, I just started training. Yeah, I've been kiting at a park. To me, that you're the coolest person that I want to talk to. I'm going to be rooting for you. I want you to have a great time. I mean, and I've gotten to meet almost everybody. There's a lot of people who are sort of the best of the best, and I walk up to them and I'm like, I don't care if you can barrel roll. Like, I'm gonna come up and tell you some weird jokes and just be bizarre. Like, I don't care about that. And it's just not a competition. We just want ourselves to have fun and have a good time and stay safe. And I absolutely love that about this.
Yeah, I agree. There's no competition in here. And if you mess up, the cool thing is that someone's going to come over and help you set up your wing, help you
Oh yeah.
set up something, help you get that motor on your back. I mean, we're all here and we
Yep.
all want to do the same thing. We all want to fly. We all want all of our friends that are paramotor pilots to fly, and we're out there helping everyone. I love it so much. It's really great. Anything else that you want to chat about, Steve, before we
So
call
I think
it?
one of the things I love about the community, but it's a bit of a dichotomy, because if you look at, and I've joked about it before, but like if you look at like how online paramotor pilots treat each other versus in person, like there's kind of a big difference. There's a lot of big personalities. There's a lot of strong opinions. There's a lot of people that just can't work with another person. It's kind of weird. And when I first got into this, I really thought I was going to be a loner. And I thought my initial impression that stuff was a hot mess. And then that turned into, man, I'm in heaven. I love these people. I love being around them. I love flying. I love doing all this. And I still believe that, you know, for what we do, we're such a small community. It's such a high attrition rate, that when we get together and we know that no matter what level we're at, that we're just flyers, there's something that transcends something that would divide us in the normal world. You know, it goes beyond. And I don't know if I picked up on this a little bit more because I've had a very varied life. Like, I grew up, half my family were Lutheran pastors. I grew up in the military. I ended up going into the humanities at a liberal arts college. And then I come back home to Nebraska, and I went from being sort of a computer book nerd. Now I'm a blue collar maintenance superintendent. And I've just kind of done a whole bunch of different 180s in my life that I've just kind of noticed that, at least in my attitude and my perspective, you know, I don't come into this community with kind of being opinionated for things that aren't paramotor related. So far, people have treated me so well that I feel like what we do transcends what would divide us in the normal world. You know, whether it be religion or politics or so many other things. And I think we all need to stop and just realize that we can capitalize on it, that we can operate in what many people treat as a black and white world and make it gray, and realize that we've got common ground, and that we're able to really appreciate and just love each other, when if we didn't do this, we'd be extremely annoyed and kind of hate each other. And the more friends I make, and the more I get into this, the more I feel like, and I'm not saying I'm like, everybody just get along. I'm an extremely opinionated person. I feel like I'm well read. I don't know. But I feel like people have made me feel so much bigger than what I really am, and given me the joy for that I kind of have to sacrifice a part of my identity, because I'd rather be a unifier than a divider. And I'm okay with that, because I love doing this so much, and I love hanging out with the people so much, that I'd rather do anything that gets realistic results and bring positivity. Even if I'm a jerk, even though I come across as obnoxious, I'm okay being obnoxious, but I don't want to ever make someone feel like I was being mean. So I'd always want to be a punching bag and not take myself seriously if that meant it brought other people together. And that's my soapbox. There's a magical thing with what we get to do with flying on bed sheets and strings without a cockpit, and enjoying that kind of joy and all that dopamine in your brain with other human beings going through the same thing. And we need to not forget that feeling, because it doesn't exist hardly anywhere else. It's so unique.
That's
It's so
true. And when
special.
we're up in the air, nothing matters at all. We got about 20 minutes until 9 o'clock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the Zoom meeting ID and the one-click link. If you have Zoom, join us on here and chat with Steve and the panel and ask questions, or just hang out on the panel for the next 20 minutes, because we're probably going to drop out here in a little bit.
Hey,
So go ahead.
A question's been bypassed by Angela numerous times, and she's asking if you're planning on coming to the Tomahawk Fly-in at all in July by us.
I don't know yet. I've been spending a lot of money on what I have been doing that I'm thinking about it. I think Wisconsin's an easy drive for me. I don't know. My brain's been so soup lately. I haven't thought about it, but I've been talking to you about it a bit and stuff. I think I might.
You know, we'll chat.
Okay, Angela, are you going to go to Wisconsin if I go to Wisconsin? That's the big
She is
question.
coming to Wisconsin. They're coming.
Bear. I guess I'm going.
All right.
Did you like that? Nebraska Paramotor's talking me into going to Oshkosh. I wasn't going to do it, but he might drag me there. So we'll
He will be
see.
there too.
Otherwise, definitely EFD. EFD is by far, people-wise, one of my favorite fly-ins. I just love the people there. I just enjoy flying and wish I had a girlfriend. But they don't like paramotor people unless they already do it.
That's true. Well, I don't know. Paramount USA, she doesn't. She just started flying, so there
Yeah,
you go.
she's one of us now.
Yep.
Yeah. And you have a high bump tolerance, you said. So you go up and fly midday a lot, or why do you have a good bump tolerance?
No, I don't fly midday a lot. I just live in the Midwest. So there's some days where it's been so long since you've flown that you'll go up when it's safe. But at our home base, if it's coming from the south, it'll get rotor pretty good. But you might go in days where you get some gusts and then you get tossed around a bit.
You fly with a reserve?
Yes. I didn't actually install my reserve until like 16 flights in, but yeah, I've got a reserve.
That's good. I think a lot of people when they first start, they don't have a reserve. Do you side mount it or front mount it?
Side mount.
Okay.
And I make sure I pre-flight that every time, like big time.
What is your pre-flight?
Kind of wish I had a front mount, but at the same time, it is so nice not having anything right in front of you. But you know, if I wanted to be super paranoid and safe, not having like an accidental deployment, like
right,
front mount. But every time I go up, I make sure I don't miss that reserve pre-flight.
So how do you pre-flight your reserve? Just in case people don't have a reserve or they have a front mount, how would you pre-flight a side mount reserve? Or how do you do it personally? Because I know everybody does things.
So I have a deck harness. So there's it almost looks like weed eater line that kind of goes in and hooks, and I just make sure they're all the way at the end of where they can go, because that's basically your pin.
Right.
Make sure all the Velcro's all together, that the handle is all pushed in, and that it's zippered to my harness and it's not like coming undone. Everything's packed in there. Basically just trying to look at making sure I don't have an accidental deployment.
Right.
So I started doing something I told myself I'd never do, because I don't have a whole lot of money to replace equipment, and I think about that, so that affects my decisions. But yeah, foot dragging. Like not just a little touch, like I'm just dragging my foot all over the field. It's just too much fun.
Do you have a good field? Like maybe, is it like a mode field? Is it nice and cut, or is it
Something weird happened to me recently when I came back from Bad Apples. I was just flying one day at the field and it was gnarly, and then it just turned into butter. And for the next couple nights, it was just the smoothest air I've been in a while. And I listened and I learned from a lot of people. So I would come in and I'd make sure I'd have some breaks in, so I'd have some up and down play.
Mm-hmm.
And before, I would just hover 5 feet over there's a grass runway we have that's cut into corn that I always practice my straight and level flying, just to see if I could, maintain a certain altitude and fly straight. And I never thought I was ready. And these days came, and sure enough, like, I'm just dragging the heck out of my boot. It's just like, I guess I'm into this now. And then I go up, I'm like, hey, I want to try big ears. I'm going to do that. And now when I go up, I try to play with energy management just a hair. It's not like I'm cranking or banking. I'm not doing wing overs, but and I have no desire to do like acro. I don't want to do a barrel roll, but I eventually just want to be somebody has their fundamentals very dialed down, that they eventually understand energy management. And I don't know, maybe I'll be doing a barrel roll in a year. Who knows? I just let the story write itself. So I got a quick, I just saw something in the chat. Jacques Burton goes, Stephen, you left your dress in my van. So I met Jacques through Nebraska Paramotor, and he's like, don't be too weird. And because he was a guy that gave me a really nice landing zone. And so I show up and I'm not being my weird self. And he was totally disappointed. He's like, where's the entertainment, man? What's going on? Because I didn't want to weird out like a new guy that I got a favor from. But I had an amazing time down there. It was super neat.
I had a really good time. Thank you so much, Steve, for joining us tonight. Had an absolute blast. You're crazy, but you're wonderful all at the same time, and I'm sure everybody knows that. People are saying, "Hey, be part of the panel." I agree. If you want to be part of the panel, come on and jump on anytime. You are in our guest chat, which is it's very exclusive. We just don't let anybody in. Anybody that is a guest is in the guest chat. So
you let me on, you'll let anybody in.
No, no. You're a guest. That's why you're here. It's part of it. So if you want to be on the guest chat and you want to see what's going on, which is constant, and we get a couple guests that are like, no. And they leave the chat because we just talk all the time. I mean, it's so fun. I mean, every day I have to scroll through so much because you guys are talking so much about paramotors. It's so interesting. You guys are posting up videos and different things like that, which is really awesome. I really enjoy that a lot. So I'm really glad that we did that guest chat. So thank you, thank you, Steve, very much for joining us. Had a blast. Let's go ahead and say goodbye to everybody on the panel. We'll start with Mr. Jim from Canada A. Tell us what's all about, man. What's it all about? So,
I'll tell you what it's all about, man. It's all about flying.
It is. It is all about
you guys. Man, Steve, you were a great guest. That was awesome. Thank you very much.
Well, remember, it's not all about flying. Also, $20 is $20.
No, we're talking $100 bills here.
Gotta get those loonies and toonies.
Definitely, loonies and toonies. I wonder how many people out there that are not from Canada or been to Canada know what a loony and toonie is. Matter of fact, when my friend Brian was here, I was opened up my lockbox where I have all my coins from all over the world because I travel all over the world, and I had some old loonies and toonies, and I showed him that, which was pretty cool. So, Jim, tell us a little bit about your company and how we can get some decals if we need some decals. And of course, tell everybody in America, what the hell is a decal?
A decal is a decal. And you can contact me through ClearPP.com, and you can give me a phone call if you want. The number is on there. The
1-800 number. I'm gonna call it.
1-800 number. You betcha. If you want me to pay the bill, give me a call.
That's
and
awesome.
I'll accept the charges. There you go. And I can do all sorts of printing. If I can't do it, I can figure out some way to get it done. I've got lots of friends all across North America that work with me, so I can help you out.
Absolutely. And he's the one that actually helped us out with printing out all the Paramotor calendars on paramotorcalendars.com, which we gave away all last year. And they are also on sale on PPG Zone if you want to go over there and grab them also. And we need to do another calendar, I think. So we'll hold another upload on PPG Zone and contests and all that stuff. Hopefully soon. I guess I got to get up with Josh about it. It's been a while. But thank you, Jim, for helping us out with the chat and all that stuff, and all the stacks and stacks of our ClearProp TV stickers that I need to send out. So thank you very much for that, buddy. I appreciate you. And can't wait for you to be on the panel again next week on Monday on ClearPropTV.com.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Jim. We also got our very own Linda Anderson, our ParaMomUSA.com. She's the one that will help you get on the show if you want to, or tell you how to get up with Eric so you can go on a tandem.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. She's
With
got a
Mr.
great
Leader,
t-shirt.
the awesomeness. Yes.
Absolutely.
The tandem was, that whole day was such a blast. Just being able to meet Eric and Jade in person, everything. They're my family, you know, they're just like my family now. And it was such a good day. It was something that I'm always going to take with me. And I want to find other fly-ins and do some more tandems and just keep it going, you know, because life's too short. But thank you, chatters and viewers, for being on our show tonight. I totally appreciate everybody, you know, for hanging with us on Monday night. Thank you so much. Much love, much love. And don't forget Thursday night, paraglidingtalk.com with my
Yeah,
son.
Cam.
Yeah, with Robert
Yeah,
Michaels.
yeah.
So y'all join in on Thursday night, paraglidingtalk.com.
Absolutely. And if you want to be on the show, just get up with Linda Anderson. Just go to ParaMomUSA.com. It'll forward over to her Facebook page and just PM her or DM her and say, yo, I want to be on PPG Grandpa's Paramotor Podcast, ClearProp TV, paratalk.org. Every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. We want to also say thank you very much to Padre Brook PPG for the $5 donation, DP with the $10 donation, and Will Fly with the $5 donation. And if you can't help us out financially, man, the thumbs up really helps a lot, and we totally appreciate you guys. We also have Will Fly from Will Fly PPG. He helps us out in the chat, and he does a lot of really things behind the scenes. Things behind the scenes over here on ClearPropTV.com. So Will Fly, thank you very much for what you do for the show and behind the scenes that people don't know about. I definitely appreciate you, man.
I had a lot of fun hanging out with you guys. Steve, you were great. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, glad you got to see me. Yeah.
Glad you got to see me. I love it. So Will Fly makes some amazing videos. If you haven't seen his videos, go to willflyppg.com, subscribe to his channel, hit that bell notification, because he puts out some of the best videos. I think better than Tucker. Oops, sorry, Tucker, but it's the truth. Will Fly puts out some really good stuff.
Thank you.
We also got Flying Flamingo Jade was able to hang out with us tonight. We definitely appreciate you, Flying Flamingo Jade from paramotorgirl.com. So are you planning on doing your show on Wednesday by any chance?
Yep, I'm gonna try, and changing the format up a little bit. And actually the following week, I was just thinking about it, I'll be hitting 1 year next week, Wednesday. So
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say a huge thanks to Jade, because like when I first got into this, like she actually like was a huge part of making me feel like I was a part of a family, and that was like accepted and stuff. Like Jade was super incredible. I absolutely loved it. She made the experience awesome.
Yeah, and I try to make everybody feel that way, Steve. And so, and that's what I love about our show on Paramotor Girl. Like you said, people are able to go to different parts of the states and meet up with other guests that we've had on here and just call them out and say, hey, you want to meet me? And these gals do. And the guests will.
You didn't make me feel like that.
So I met you, Tango. So, yeah. So that's what's fun about these shows, is getting to be able to meet everybody and be one big family. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So hopefully you guys can join us Wednesday night and 7 p.m. Central at paramotorgirl.com.
Paramotorgirl.com.
She's got great leggings for sale, but if you order women's clothing as a guy, gotta order a size up. Otherwise, it ain't gonna fit you right.
Steve has been my model for Tomahawk tees.
Yeah.
Just wish I had a better body. That's all I wish for.
Oh, cut it out.
Hey, thank you very much, Steve, for joining us tonight. You've been an amazing guest. You've talked a lot, and
The money was worth it. It really
I'm telling
was.
you, I'm glad I sent you that $5 so you could talk and hang with us.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, and Jade and Will, Linda, Jim, Angela jumped on, John Wayne. Thank you very much. We appreciate you too. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. If you tune in during the live show, thank you very much. If you tune in on our recorded show, thank you very much. We definitely appreciate you, and don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting app, because that truly helps us. We are all over the internet. You search for PPG Grandpa's Paramotor Podcast. You can find us on Amazon, on Audible, all the different podcasting apps. We are everywhere. We have just blanketed everywhere. We get between 500 and 1,500 listens or downloads every week on all of our different platforms. So we definitely appreciate you guys, and can't wait for you to swing by again next week at iflyparamotors.com or ppggrandpa.com. We appreciate you, and we'll see you very soon. So you guys stay here, but we're going to say peace out to everybody else. Peace out, everyone. We
Bye.
love you, and we'll see you soon.